276 jobs. 2007, another 200 jobs. 2008, 72 more jobs. So now we're going to hit 2009. I mean, what happens in 2009? We're in a recession. So this whole idea about term limits, cause international business not to have jobs is a misnomer. I'm telling you that. Because what this says in 2009, they went down by 330, but it was because of the recession. They went down by a further 126 in 2010, and in 2011, they went down by a further 228. These are the numbers, and as I said to you, these are the numbers for employment in Bermuda from 2002 to 2011.
Thank you. My good man.
Good evening. My name is Victor Roach. I work at Grata Bay Hotel. Presently, there is a captain there. I know his term limit is up, which as I'm saying now, is term limits does affect work permits. The reason why I'm saying that is there is a qualified Bermudian I know that can do the job, was interviewed and was not given the chance. I have it here, a letter that was written to the Board of Immigration to seek an extension for this foreigner, which I'm a foreigner also, but I was living here 31 years. Seeking an extension for him. And you know what, I must say, this is the gentleman here, Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean is well qualified. Why can Mr. Bean not have the job as the captain at Grata Bay? Then there's secondly, the front office manager at Grata Bay she has been working out of her category for a long time. There were numerous reports to immigration. Nothing has been done. There is a Bermudian that was promoted that has applied for the front office position, was promoted to assistant front office manager, but this is the first time in my entire life that I have ever seen anyone get a 9 months probationary period on a job and apply for a 2-year extension on the front office for the front office managers to keep her here.
So pose a question for
so, would the minister please address that? Do anyone ever get a 9 months probationary period on a job? No. I say it, I know one of my shareholders is here, so they'll know about it tonight. One of my shareholders are here, so they'll know about it tonight.
What I'm not going to do is address the individual complaint. I don't have that information to hand in any event. But what I will say is this. No, what I will say is this. We did have a hotel jobs fair in January. I have spoken with the Bermuda Hoteliers Association. I was advised when I did my tour there, and the shadow was there as well, I'm sure you heard the same thing, that there were very good Bermudian applicants that were making applications. I've made mention of this to the Bermuda Hoteliers Association that I would expect in return that the number of work permit applications should decrease as a result of the clearly qualified number of Bermudians. That is key, and we will continue to say that we need to make sure now in terms of when these things happen, there is a procedure that can be followed. There's an immigration hotline to complain. The union reps have met in other areas with us directly to discuss some of certain issues similar to the ones you're describing, and we look into that. There are compliance officers, investigative officers who look into these things regularly to protect Bermudians. And if I can say one more point, and this is exactly why we're going to be putting something in force to prevent rogue employers from doing untoward things, is to say that there will be increased penalties for employers who breach immigration policy. I mean, the view that I take on this is very simple. If there's one prosecution of an employer and they're fined heavily for breaking immigration policy, I can assure you that I would imagine most other employers will fall into line very quickly so that we can protect Bermudian jobs, and that's the key here. I agree.
But one more question I have here. From that job fair, the only applications we got were for people to interview were body workers and for waiters, were body workers. I don't know. Well, I don't know where you said that all of these other people applied, but I get applicants from body workers and so forth. That's what was given to me.
All right.
No one else.
Thank you, Brother Victor. Yes. Shadow.
I think one of the other clear concerns that many of the public have is that where will be the motivation for employers now that the policy has been removed with no corresponding enhancements that are evident at the moment? Where's the motivation for them to train the Bermudians who can ultimately take jobs that might come available once permits are ended? And then you get a scenario where people will ask, well, what now is the limit? Can a person stay here for 9, 12, 15, 20 years? What if that business never really moves to train up somebody? Will they just get their permit approval? These are things that Bermudians want to know are going to be dealt with. Because now you have no limit. What is the limit?
Okay, thank you. But before you go, brother, let me just pose a question to the shadow minister there. And on that note, for the 14 years you were there as a government, why weren't these things introduced?
I'm actually happy to answer that because we spent all of our time, some of the things that we did to try and enhance the work permit framework was we modernized technology. The hotline that the minister mentions is an innovation that we put in place. We certainly tried to have a board that was diverse and that more reflected the interests of workers. We increased the number of persons in the department to ensure that there were better turnaround times, more efficiencies. We increased the manpower of enforcement as well. We did a number of things, but the reality is that the permit situation, if 50 years ago people were concerned about it, 50 years from now they may still be concerned about it because people are concerned about their interests of their families and their future, and they're always going to be concerned about this. So it's not necessarily something you can fix by one flip of a switch or a change of a policy. It's an ongoing work that you have to do to protect the interests of Bermudians and those in our economy.
Sounds just like a politician. A true politician, I tell you. But anyhow, my good man, your question, please.
Good evening. My name is Andrew Simons, and I have a question directed specifically at the Shadow Minister. And it's a question, I want to focus on the term limit piece and set aside the work permits. And first, let me give you a specific scenario. First, ignore international business, because we've heard from both sides that there are waivers and exemptions. So ignore them. I want to ask you about, say, Mrs. Millett, who runs home and auto upholstery on Curving Avenue. For many years, she's told me she's advertised for people to become upholsterers. No one's applied. She'll apply for a work permit and she'll say no Bermudian has applied. And at the end of the term of that work permit, she'll advertise again and still she won't find someone suitable. So my specific question to you, Mr. Oban, is how does the practice of telling the person she has currently who's working out, who might be from Jamaica, might be from Scotland, might be from anywhere really, how does it help her as a small business owner to send that person packing and then bring in another foreigner? Because again, she will have advertised the job and found no one to replace that person. So how does it help Miss Millett on Curving Avenue? And how does it help Bermudians who might need their car seat repaired if she goes out of business for want of employees?
Okay, thank you. And Shadow Minister?
Certainly, Ms. Millett can make an application for an extension to that person. But also, one thing Ms. Millett can also do is approach the Department of Labor and Training and say, perhaps
I would like to employ a Bermudian eventually to these jobs. I can work with you. Perhaps, how can we develop a training program locally for upholsterers to empower a Bermudian in that trade so that I can eventually employ them, or they might even be employed by another employer, or perhaps a number of people can be trained up in that area. So Ms. Miller can work with the government to actually ensure that ultimately some Bermudian that she can benefit from, she might even help with paying their fees for their training if it's on island.
Okay.
But she can get support from the government to train up somebody who might ultimately come back and take that position of a qualified upholsterer in her business. So Ms. Miller can work with the government with no cost to herself necessarily, so that she can have somebody ultimately in that role.
All right, thank you.
If I may.
Just to add what the shadow minister has said, I'm a small business owner as well, and I don't know, I hope my brother-in-law doesn't mind because I blasted him already. He is a Bermudian employer, business owner, who made it a practice of hiring non-Bermudians. Not the fact that Bermudians couldn't do the job, he just had it in his mindset that he did not want one. And it really blew my mind, because it was a mindset that I personally tackled him and said, listen, you got a bad mindset. You are a Bermudian employing non-Bermudians. How does that work? You have a business, you can train them to do that job.
That's right.
And he gave me all sorts of excuses until that category was absolutely shut down by the minister. And you know what he did? He employed Bermudians. Right now, his company runs with Bermudians. And I said to my sister at the time, I said, he'll learn something about himself, because now he's going to put in place and absolutely train people that he should have trained all along.
Mr. Johnson?
But both of those examples with training can be done without the function of term limits. There's no reason why an upholsterer, butchers, or recently waiters cannot take training and have training programs designed to fit them. Nail technicians is another one, and there can be more. There has been a success with those programs, and there's no reason why there shouldn't be additional programs. And that can be done without the negative impact of term limits on international business setting up here, and also in attracting investment to this country.
Mr. Johnson, can I just ask, while you mentioned that about the training part of it, and then I heard somebody mention something about butchers. And for a long time I noticed, and I've always wondered, and I hope that the government of the day would actually consider some type of reciprocal arrangement, Mr. Johnson, with some sort of a reciprocal arrangement made between, maybe a joint venture between public and private sponsors, where somebody coming in from a foreign country with a particular skill set, that we are able to send some locals away to learn that same skill set. When they come back, they'll be sustainable in these particular industries. And I'm just hoping that this government of the day will consider something like that. And then if the individual does go away, and I'm just a lay person, but if the person should go away, will they be able to come back and stay employed with the company for several years, so that they can be loyal to the company for helping them get that particular skill? Anything else, though, brother?
Well, I can answer one of those points right away. What I can tell you is that we are rolling out some new training programs, including one for butcher training program, because, of course, that's again an area, as you've identified, where there is a prolific number of non-Bermudians employed in that industry. So the government will continue to build on what was done before, because some of the things, look, what the government did before wasn't always wrong. Right? It wasn't always wrong, and we can build on that. So, and the other thing is we'll have some bipartisanship here.
Yeah, that's right.
The shadow minister is absolutely right about the Department of Labor and Training. We've also said that it's incumbent upon Bermudians, make sure you register the Department of Labor and Training. so that if you have those qualifications and people are making applications for work permits, those employers have to go to the Department of Labor and Training and have a look and make sure that they are investigating that there are Bermudians there that are suitably qualified. The opportunities are there.
All right. Mr. Vera, I think you wanted to say something real quick. Then I'll come right back to you, Ralph.
I just wanted to piggyback on the
Real
training.
quick.
The Chamber of Commerce Restaurant Division, in collaboration with the Labor and Training Department, and this is under the former government, ran a 100-waiter program. So the idea is to attract 100 waiters, and they did this twice, by the way, 100 people, who would be interested, and Bermudians specifically, let me just be clear, interested in becoming waiters. We worked in that program, and a few of our members, and let me just put this in perspective. We had 3,000 people unemployed. They didn't attract 100 people in either training session. I don't know why not. I heard somebody ask why not. I'm curious too. And the other thing is, they ran the program. It was only 60% successful, i.e., 60% of the people graduated, if you can call it that, out of the program. And the terms of that program were they're very basic terms. You had to turn up on time, and you had to pay attention while you were there. You couldn't take, uncertified sick days, etc. I mean, the point is, they tried to put some controls around it. But 60% of the people actually graduated out of that program. Now, I'm curious as well, where were they? That training was provided, we collaborated with it, and it wasn't as successful as we had hoped it would be.
Okay, maybe that's another conversation. Yes, sir, brother, real quick, please.
I just wanted to go back to the shadow minister because I appreciate the training piece, I appreciate the work permit, but specifically, how does the practice of making someone leave if you've already applied for the job and there are no Bermudians for that job, if you're going to bring in another foreigner for that job? So the specific bit about the term limit, not the work permits, how does that help Mrs. Millett?
Okay.
Well, I'm not sure what the gentleman is trying to get.
Let me help. I think.
But I'm happy to try and answer him again.
No, that's fine. Let me do it. We got time. Listen, what you're asking, and let me say this: if it had been my business, and certainly being concerned about the term limits and things like that, I would have looked out to try to get, just like the minister and the shadow minister said, someone from the Labor Department to probably tutor them how to become a upholsterer. But since that didn't take place, and I'm thinking that maybe the new government may have that in their sights, hopefully they will, that when these businesses do come, you have to remember history, guys. In the early 80s, the same thing was talked about when an individual comes for a year to train up a local to take over these jobs. Hopefully we'll come back to that, but I don't think the shadow minister can say any more to you about it. The term limit is gone, so if there's nobody in Bermuda to do the trade, then maybe we have to look at the vocational skills and get somebody trained up to do it. All right? Okay. All right.
Just as a point of clarification, if I can just speak to that, there are two items in the term limit. First of all, it says there will be short-term permits and renewals beyond the maximum number of 6 years if the employer makes a strong enough case. So that's number one. Number two, further down the work permit policy, it says work permit term limits will not apply where there is a shortage in Bermuda arising from the difficulty of recruiting persons because there is a general chronic shortage of resources overseas with a local impact. So I think the work permit policy spoke to those issues. Hence my question that I'm about to lay out. Mr. Minister, my name is Cornell Fubler. I actually have a meeting with you this coming Friday at 10:30, but that was canceled. Hopefully we can rearrange that meeting. What I've chosen to do is educate myself. Yes, I understand the very sensitive issue as it relates to work permits versus term limits. And so I've gone to meet Mr. Jensen. We met last week. Mr. Vera, you're on my list. Douglas Source, we met last week as well. I have an email into Ms. Cheryl Packwood And there's one other.
There's a question, please.
Yeah. Just hang tight. Listen, when that man was there for his
That's okay,
extended
sir.
period of time,
Let
we
me-
didn't give my time.
Yeah,
Come on.
listen, all right.
Come on. Let's
A
be
question,
fair.
please.
Let's be fair.
We're trying to wrap up.
Let's
please.
be fair.
On that. You can.
Mr. Vera, Mr. Jensen, international business is our greatest contributor. And I understand the 87% versus 87 cents versus 13 cents. I understand the real estate market and the rental income being depressed. The uncertainty of international business, that I understand too. I understand unemployment is at our highest levels, 3,000 plus. I understand parenting. My question is coming. I understand parents are having to pull their children out of private schools. I understand the uncertainty with international business. I understand the global factors.
Sir,
understand
please.
impressing.
Please.
Listen.
A question. No grandstanding. Just a question.
It's not
please.
grandstanding. I am a Bermudian.
I know you are.
Yes.
But we
And
all know this.
I'm
Good
legitimately
question.
here.
We got others. We got a
All
time
right,
limit.
all right.
Please.
I got two more statements and then my question. If you
My
would
dear.
hear, if you
My
would
dear. No. I'm
I
asking for the
recognize
question,
my
please.
question's coming. I recognize ABER's 1 billion contribution in 2010, and I recognize a 22% decline that was mentioned earlier. But to me, those are not the issues. The issue of today, and this is for Minister Fay, why would your government indicate that there was going to be a suspension of the policy for 2 years and then do an about face,
I can answer.
yes, and abolish the policy altogether, given the fact that I, based on my research thus far, have not seen anything, and I've read it all, I have not seen anything that says hasten the abolition versus the suspension. That, to me, is the real issue. I think as Bermudians, we appreciate international business.
Okay, sorry.
We appreciate all of those
We
factors.
appreciate all that,
but the real issue is, why was the trust of the Bermudians betrayed with an about face on the policy?
Okay. Thank you. We finally got there. Thank you.
I understand the gentleman's concerns, and I have tried to address that right from the beginning of this evening. Again, and I've been very clear about it, I said 3 or 4 weeks ago, we did indeed say that we would suspend term limits for 2 years pending the review of a better policy. Upon review, it became very clear that based on legal opinions, based on statistics, and based on all the areas that we looked into, that the better policy, after input, and we can debate, now is not the time to debate consultation again, but in our view, it was very clear that term limits was not necessarily required, or not required.
All right.
Again, term limits were introduced to prevent the legitimate expectation of residency. The law is very clear under Section 7A that that's already there.
Thank you, Minister.
Just as a follow-up question. With all due respect, come on, gentlemen, you allowed that man 3 questions. Come on now, let's be fair. Let's be fair.
My dear.
Let's be fair.
Oh, okay. Yes, good evening.
Thank you.
Sorry, I would like to be granted an
Have a
opportunity
seat,
to have a
Mr.
follow-up
Pablo.
question.
We have others that's been in line. Please. Go ahead, my dear.
I would like to make a comment before I make
Okay.
my
Please,
ask my
go ahead.
question. The gentleman before last, he made a statement in reference to Mrs. Millet's upholstery business. There are so many upholstery businesses in Bermuda. I work for one.
Okay.
So I know that you can put forward for a work permit, and the board says nobody applied. When somebody did apply.
Okay.
So I know that, and I've done work permits over the years.
All right.
Anyway, my name's Lily Mae. Hi. What I would like to ask Minister Fay, what does he have to say about the comments that was given by Michael Branco in reference to the reason that we done the term limit so fast was because Bermudians are unfriendly or have a problem with foreigners when most of us are related to foreigners, or our sisters are married to a foreigner, our husband is married to a foreigner, and I have to give this comment before you ask the question. I worked in the international business at one time for 9 years. Now, this is one thing that they tell the staff that comes from overseas. They wish you not to fraternize with the locals. They like for you to be separate from the locals because they feel that the locals are going to give them an attitude about the job or about Bermuda. They can tell them the truth about Bermuda. I've been there. Answer my question. Thank you.
I don't think Mr. Branco at any time said that term limits were done away with because we were afraid of foreigners. I'm not sure I necessarily understand the point. We did not say that. That it was done away with? I did not say that.
He did say that one of the reasons that behind the thought of your canceling the term limits was in reference to Bermudians
Being xenophobic.
Yeah,
Being xenophobic.
xenophobic with guest workers. Did you understand me?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Just for clarity, I have the direct quote from the statement that was released from Michael Branco. Michael Branco is the deputy chairperson of the One Bermuda Alliance. The direct quote is, "We believe the reason they went ahead with putting the policy in place was to pander to the xenophobic views of those Bermudians who would like Bermuda to be foreigner-free." That's a direct quote from the statement.
Thank you.
I didn't hear Mr. Branco in there say it was removed because of that. So again, I'm confused about the question. Mr. Branco made his remark, and Mr. Branco has made a remark about it. It was in response, as far as I'm aware, to other comments that had been made in relation to it. It was a response to something else that had been said.
Okay. Who's next? Brother John? Please, quickly, please. This will be the last.
Yes, good evening. My name is John Henry Hildip III. Now, I just want to say this to Mr. Vera, I think. In terms of you getting waiters, back in the day, half and I could tell you, we started as busboys and worked up. Perhaps you need to consider using the children at 12 and 13 while in high school and bringing them on board, because that's how we started. Okay. In regards to Bermudian jobs, jobs in Bermuda are not Bermudian jobs without Bermudian participation. And that's truth. Immigration reform. Locals unemployed in the meantime. You say that, okay, we're going to get jobs when these contracts expire. But according to what that gentleman read in the policy, when there is a dire shortage, expats, those contracts can be broken because there's a shortage and because there are Bermudians that could do the work. So according to the policy that is in place, those expats that are working in jobs, and sir, let me get this clear. We understand the need for international business to have people from overseas. We don't have a problem with that. What we have a problem with is everybody else. Because you've got too many people. You just said 3,000 Bermudians that are unemployed and capable to work and want to work. But you're saying now that we have to sit around and wait until these contracts expire when the policy says clearly that if there's a shortage, these contracts that these employers have with these other workers can be broken legally.
Okay, come with
and
your
they
question,
can go
Mr.
home.
Holder. Your question, please.
I think I made it clear. Bermudians should be working, and the expats should be allowed to go home. Those contracts can be broken because there is a dire shortage in Bermuda. Okay. So according to the policy that is written, that's what I'm saying. Okay. The policy is in place. Right. OBA doesn't have to put it in place. It's already in place. So all you have to do is simply just say to the expat workers outside of the international business, thank you, we appreciate your service, but you have to go home so that the Bermudians can work. You cannot have 3,000 people sitting on this island talking about they can't find work, and you got people from other places working. That's not right. I understand the international business, like I said, and I'm going to get off your mic. I understand the international business. I understand what they're saying. And I'm sure all of them didn't leave just because of the term limit.
Thank you.
They didn't
Thank you,
leave just
sir.
because term limit.
Thank
But the
you.
term limit, and I'll say this, in the United States, they're arguing right now about the term limits because they want the legislators not to have lifetime interest in being legislators. Term limits are specifically designed, sir, so that even with the work permits, it means that your work permit can only be extended but so long.
All right, thank you.
After that, they have to leave.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Brother Larry, please.
Good evening, Larry Holder, President of the Postal Division. I took part in a telephone survey. It had to deal with the relevance of the international business. And interestingly enough, it had questions about long-term residency and status for Bermudians. Status for the foreign workers and so forth. And it just kind of made me very curious in terms of why they would do that. And the whole crux of the thing was to ask about the value of international business. The first question is the OBA aware of it, and were they a part of it? The second thing is this here, is that whilst I recognize that we all have some legislation that on the books in terms of immigration, recognizing that we're a dependent territory, can these things be challenged as recognizing that the mother country, the UK, may have UN charters and UK legislation and EU policies and so on and so forth, and human rights policies? Can these things be reversed, and have they been explored to see whether or not our legislation stands up to these types of things?
All right, thank you, Rob. Very good question.
Thank you. In relation to your first question of surveys, I'm unaware that the government or the One Bermuda Alliance is participating in any survey at the moment, so that's the answer to that. It's the first I've heard of it. Second question in relation to the issue of the UN charters and the UK and whether or not they can interfere with us. In relation to the issue of term limits, the legal advice is sound in that there is no legitimate expectation of residency under current Bermuda law. And as far as I'm aware, that's not to be interfered with. Again, I can't guarantee anything in respect of how the UK would choose, but they have no right, they're not going to be interfering in our internal affairs in terms of this kind of thing.
That's why it's
Okay. So my good man, real quickly.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Cordell Riley. I have two direct questions for the minister. If I were an unemployed front office receptionist, captain, or administrative assistant, and I'm looking for employment, is it possible today to walk into the Department of Immigration and get a listing of companies which will have those positions opening up within the next 3 months? Is that possible?
Good question.
Thank you, Cordell. That is a great question. In fact, it's one of the questions I asked when I came into the ministry, and that is something that is underway. What we're hoping to see is when the Workforce Development Agency opens in the Magistrates Court, we'll have the IT properly set up so that Bermudians will be able to go online and have a look and see what positions are coming available. So that is in the works.
So it's not currently available, but it's being worked on?
It's being worked on.
Okay. The second question would be, if an employer seeks to have a work permit renewed or extended, and says that there are no Bermudians qualified or no Bermudians available, what measures does the ministry take to ensure or substantiate those claims?
Currently, what happens is when someone makes an application, they have to put the cover letter on that says the people who have applied and why they were not taken up for those positions. The compliance department does, especially if there's a complaint, make investigations to find out whether or not Joe Bloggs actually was interviewed and why he wasn't actually selected for that position. So the compliance officers do look into that.
Do they require them to submit resume?